So Bliss, beautiful Bliss is the Chief Executive Officer of Conscious Evolver Enterprises and creator of Conscious Evolver, the Conscious Evolver coaching system, the Initiation Circle acceleration program, and is the author of the forthcoming memoir. I'm not quite sure if I should give that away, the title. Would you like to?
It's I Am Bliss, Memoir of a Messenger.
Thank you. And you're, since 2012, you have been personally testing each platform for efficiency and effectiveness and the relevancy of this new paradigm, right? And you have proven with all your clients and successful clients, thousands all around the world, that you lead and assist in guiding accelerator of consciousness through self-actualized personal development. And that's really what I'm here to do, what you're here to do, what we all are here to do, I believe, is to contribute to the new paradigm.
Truly, yeah.
So thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure, Carrie. Thank you. Hi, guys.
And your book, your memoir that you're working on. Where did that come about, and what is really the message behind it and the energy behind bringing a book out into the world after all these years of your work?
Because I've actually reached out to James and asked him to mentor me a little bit, because he's those few steps ahead. The book is something that I think, when other people, or what we call the universe or spirit, God, source, whatever speaks to you, when you repeatedly hear the same message over and over again, I think it's really important to listen. And so there was just a point in my life where I just kept hearing from others, when are you going to write your book? When are you going to write your book? And I'm really an advocate of, if you've heard something like that minimum 3 times, then it's time to start acting on it. Your destiny is that when you hear messages from the universe, and sometimes it's not even just a message, sometimes we're even given the blueprint, we're given the exact dimensions structure that it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. I don't know
when it comes time to actually putting it. Go ahead.
Sorry if I'm interrupting you. I was just having some connectivity, which I'm not surprised. I'm having some breakup with the Zoom, but keep going. I don't know if anyone else.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So I'll just keep talking. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah. So when the information is given to us, I think it's just so important to put it into action. And so what I noticed right away was, when I started to write, was that it was almost like the book was already written and the information was just being channeled. And so for writing a book, I feel a lot of it is just the ability to get yourself out of the way, all of the negative talk, all of the doubts, the questions like, is this going to even be interesting, or will people even buy it? All that stuff is just distraction and distortion that's really keeping us away from getting it done. And so it is a work in progress. I've had moments in time where I've been able to really focus and get a lot of that information and words written down. And then I find that there's long breaks. And every time that I come back to it, I recognize that those long breaks are because I needed to glean some information. I needed to learn something that would be more helpful to have in the book than not. So the way that the book is shaping up to be is really one of those kind of self-help journeys where the tools are embedded into the story. So if you're reading the story, then you're actually getting the tools along the way. So it's almost done. It's a little bit shelved right now, as I've been doing some of the other projects that took priority, but I do look forward to being able to finish it and getting it out there.
Thank you for sharing the behind the scenes of your next project. And what I heard you say is the pause is for a reason. And also the messages are for a reason. if
Mhm.
you've heard it. And a theme that I've heard today actually is the threes. In the sense
Yes.
of if you've heard it 3 times. So tell me a little
Mhm.
bit about the importance of the threes. Like,
Well, I think like even if we just look at the Vesica Pisces, right? You have the two circles that overlap one another. And so we can pretty much take anything and apply it into that Vesica's Pisces because it's myself, it's the other, and then it's that space of possibility in between. And that can also be known as spirit. So a lot of and you know, I've heard you mention God, Carrie. I use the term source, and I just encourage everyone to whatever power it is that they are guided by, whether it's the universe, source, God, you know,
yes.
that your brain can just do an automatic kind of like translation. So that you don't shut down the listening to what someone's saying, but instead just transferred over into your own belief system. But so I'll use the term spirit for this. Um, in that, you know, it is that guiding force. It could also be known as higher self, right? So that future wise version of ourself that has the ability to communicate with us in our present now. And so sometimes source, God, spirit speaks through us directly through our own intuition, and sometimes it speaks to us through others. And I literally have heard so many times where the quality of someone's voice just changes, just and it almost sounds like they're on a microphone, but what's coming through is so potent and so particular for where I'm supposed to head next, that next right step. And so it is that space of possibility of that we're being guided into. And so that to me is the power of three. I also created a council of three that I'd love to share with you if you're interested.
Yes, tell me
Okay.
more.
Okay. So, one of the things that I find I am a coach, a consciousness coach, all based on the conscious evolver healing system. And so, also an initiator in a 3-month program called the Initiate Circle. So, I've had a lot of time to really delve deeply with people. And one of the things that I've found as a common human trait that really just doesn't get us anywhere is when something comes up, when something triggers us, something pokes us, makes us uncomfortable, makes us stressed out, angry, we actually have like a strong reaction to it. Kind of in our 3D reality, our go-to automatic response has been and can be where we just start telling every single person, whether it's the hairdresser, the cashier at the grocery store, every single one of our friends. And we just repeat the story, and it's very much he said, she said, and then he said this, and then I said that, and then she did that, and I did that. And it's just a retelling of what happened. And what happens in that is that it's just the same repetitive low frequency that just gets repeated over and over again. And then sometimes what can happen is the people that we're telling the story with um, are also on an automatic. And so they'll just go into that while that
Mm,
person's and just maintain that low frequency
mhm,
and maybe going into name calling or start pulling out their lower qualities or whatever it is. And so
mm,
we just want to eliminate all of that negative chatter that really gets us nowhere. So I created what's called the Council of Three.
mm,
So when I find myself reactive and triggered, I'll go into the he said, she said in my own way. So either by journaling or writing it out, or thinking it out in my own mind, but really getting down to the finite lesson that's coming up. And I don't need to know the answer yet. I just need to be able to pinpoint what's coming up for me. And then I'll actually almost like a Rolodex. I'll go through my circle and tap into their expertise. What is it about them that they do for a living? How do I know that they'll respond in a really fifth
mm.
dimensional loving way? And I'll be very specific, and it's 11:11 right now, which is
I
kind of
know.
nice.
Yeah.
So it's really specific in who I'm reaching out to, and I'm only allowed to reach out to three. And so those 3 people, I'll start off by asking for consent and making sure that it is actually a good time for them. And if not, I trust that they'll let me know when is a good time. And I'll ask for a specific amount of time. So 5 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, depending on how it's affecting my heart. I will speak to these friends with the only goal in mind is to have creative solutions. And so they know that this is what our time is for, is to co-create a creative solution, help me get to the base of what's going on and how can I actually affect positive change in this scenario. And then that's it. After I've spoken to my 3 people, I'm not allowed to talk about it again. And I'm allowed to extrapolate all of that beautiful wisdom that this council of 3 has given to me. And then it's up to me to put it into action into a good and positive way. So you can really feel the difference of the old way, which is just like a recirculation of negativity and doesn't really get us anywhere, versus a very consensual and accountable way of problem solving myself and then putting into action creative solutions. So
Beautiful.
that is the council of 3.
The council of 3.
Council of 3.
The council of 3. What a practical and tactical tool to find solutions. And I love that. The intention is to create a creative solution.
Exactly.
And you share that openly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 3 steps, you want to go over them again? It is you want to go over them again quickly, like, so I can just pop them in the chat.
Well, it's not necessarily that there's 3 steps, it's that there's 3 people.
Oh, there's 3 people. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm only allowed to tell the story to 3 people.
Okay.
And I'm going to very carefully pick who those 3 people are based on their expertise. And then from there, I'm not going to talk about it again. I'm not going to repeat the story anymore. I'm just going to come up with a creative solution and put it into action.
Beautiful. So I love the idea of stories too. How, in the sense of repeating old stories with ourselves. Where do you see that in your clients, and what's the solution with that?
Yeah. I think repeating stories is actually one of the biggest generators of patterns. And so all we have to do is take a look at what has happened to us in our past, the times that we've experienced trauma, pain, and suffering. And when those moments in time go unresolved and unhealed, our subconscious will actually consciously recreate that same scenario over and over again, in order for it to be healed, because at our center we are source. And so anything that is misaligned or off course of source needs to be looked at, needs to have the light shone upon it, and it needs that time and energy and space so that it can actually experience the healing. And so when we catch ourselves or catch our friends, our loves, our beloveds, sharing the same story over and over again, and usually it's the victim story, it's when we experience being a victim for the first time or multiple times. What's happening is we are unconsciously perpetuating that story with new characters, new players, new locations, but at the core of it, it is still the same story. And so that is one of the things that I've been gifted with, and why I'm able to do what I do, is that I'm able to listen to people and really catch when I'm hearing a repeating story, which is also known as a pattern. And then the ability of a coach is to take that pattern and trace it back to its origins. And so that's what I love to do with people when I'm coaching, so that we can accelerate to the next level, we can advance to the next level. But those repeating stories, my favorite analogy is, it's like, so I really love getting into the neurons and how our neurons work. And so a repeating story is like I don't know why this is so silly, but it's always penguins. So laugh if you want. But it's like penguins on this like icy little trail that's your neuron. And so the first time you tell the story, it's like, wee, and we go down that path. But every time those penguins go down that icy hill, it gets icier and icier. And so it's just that repetition of the story. It becomes secular. It's a cycle. It doesn't change. It doesn't evolve. It's just the same repeating pattern over and over again, and until it just becomes this dangerous experience, because it is perpetuating and keeping us stuck in that same story. So, yeah, if you catch yourself and you're like, how many times have I actually told the story and it hasn't changed? That to me is like a beautiful little beacon of like, hey, this is an opportunity to do some good work here.
Yes, it's always an opportunity to do good work.
There's
To
always
get
an opportunity.
get to the root, and really that's what a coach's job is. It's to recognize patterns and then look at the root. Michael, was that a clapping hand or a raised hand? So how did you find yourself on this journey of, over the past 10 years, you've been creating the Conscious Evolver. How did you find yourself on this path and make it your life's mission?
I think I'm one of those people that I've always known. I remember being a teenager and tracking my progress with my consciousness to see how I had evolved from the previous week, which, for me is
Wow.
an indication that consciousness has always been something that is my jam, right? It's something that I really appreciate. So I think I stepped out of consciousness in my 20s, as most 20-year-olds do. And so that was kind of like the bar star days, and it became all about the exterior materialism, superficiality, makeup. I was living in Vancouver at the time. I was working for a production company making videos, movies, commercials. And I just decided that I wanted to be an agent for actors because I really had wanted to get into acting. And literally the phone rang and I answered the phone, and it was an agent in town, and she had heard about me and would literally offered me a job. So I had the thought and got the job all within the same like minute.
Wow.
And it was in that, yeah, it was really neat. But it was during that time that I really realized that I loved connecting with people and I loved promoting their passions and their pursuits. What I didn't appreciate or connect with was the intense superficiality about how it is so much about the external and about how you look. And it was around that time that I discovered yoga. And so when I started doing yoga, really creating such an internal relationship with my soul self, and then I received an Indian head massage. And so my life path completely altered in that moment in time. I learned how to give the Indian head massage. I went to Guatemala. I went to Ireland. I went to India, became a certified hatha yoga teacher, and just was meeting master after master after master and receiving so many beautiful lessons and teachings and getting downloaded their gifts. When I came back, I realized that I had been really raised in a world that revered God and all of these beautiful masculine role models. But I had this feeling of like, well, what about us? What about women? And what about the goddess? And so I had gone back to Guatemala and received a pretty powerful full moon activation, and got very clear guidance to come back to Vancouver and start a women's circle. So for 8 years, I did that. Every new moon, we were 400 members in Vancouver. We branched out to Australia, Ontario, Paris, and a few other places. And all the while teaching yoga and giving Indian head massages. And so that was basically like 2005 to 2012. And then 2012, I started receiving messages again that even though we had just bought a brand new condo that I loved dearly, that it was time to give everything away and go to Hawaii. And so my husband at the time and our daughter, we we were on the beach in Mexico getting woken up by the whales. And I had given away all of myself, my identity, the Indian head massage, all of it. And I was waiting for a lightning bolt and writing furiously in my journal, like, why am I here? And then it wasn't until we rented a cabin on Main Island that the lightning bolt actually came. And that was a very profound experience. I was dry heaving, going into shock. And what I didn't realize at the time was that that was a transmission, and it was the conscious evolver system. So I got woken up at 2:22 every morning for 8 days, and I would go up to the cold kitchen out of my warm bed, which is very unlike me, and just write furiously. But again, it was that same experience of having that channel, feeling like it was just open, and I just removed myself out of the way and just obeyed, really. And within a week, the entire system, yeah, very much like automatic writing, Peter, except that like hours of just it ended up being the entire manual, and it really didn't even need to be edited. It was so precise. So yeah, so really I think like consciousness wise things really started to take off for me, and that was just at the end of the Mayan calendar too. So even in that, it just felt very divinely timed, I guess would be a good way to say it. um, and from there I applied, and you had mentioned this, Carrie, in the opening. From there, I applied all of the wisdom that that container, the conscious evolver container, contained. And I realized as I was applying it to my own life that it worked. And I could go back to every single pattern in my past. And there were the 8 steps, just like clockwork. And so, I mean, it has really been divinely guided. I've been asked to go to so many conferences across Canada and the US sharing it. And just in the last 2 years, with the beautiful help of beautiful souls, my earth angels, I've been able to create an immersion, an 8-week immersion, where everybody can literally take each step and it becomes immersed into their lives. So that's sort of like the beginner's course. And it's beautiful because you can take any area of your life that needs an upgrade and apply it to the system, and it actually helps you evolve it into your higher purpose. And then from there came the coaching program that I just completed this year, again, with help from so many beautiful souls. But yeah, and now we have the launching of the 7th annual Initiate Circle starting just in 2 days. So things are really beautifully progressing, but at the same time, too, it has been a labor of love over the past decade. And so, like everyone always says, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it does not happen overnight. But I mean, you just shared so beautifully your history of how you have gotten to the point where you are now. And a few things stood out to me. Well, many things stood out to me. May I ask you some questions about that? What does stepping out of one's consciousness look like? Like, would one know that they're stepping out of their consciousness
That's a
into,
really good question.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back to those days, I just think that all of the attention was outward. So it was all external. So it was about my looks, my hair, my makeup, my clothes, my friends. It was a lot about having drinks, doing drugs. It was about how people saw my external. And so when that happens, there's just a disconnection that can happen with the core. And I think that that's what's beautiful about things like yoga and meditation and and coaching and internal reflection is that what happens is the importance becomes what's on the inside, what's happening in my internal landscape. How do I feel? Right? If I don't wake up and feel like wholly happy, whole into myself, sovereign, then there's something that's misaligned with my connection to my source self.
And I imagine in your course that you reconnect to your clients with source, correct? If one finds himself disconnected, the conscious
Yeah,
evolver is the solution.
it's one of them for sure. Absolutely. And I think that the way that our reality has been designed is very much to keep you in the what I call the 3D kind of tension. And so it's like we are constantly being barraged to buy all the things so that the external is what's the most important. And then there's marketing that plays on our insecurities and our weaknesses so that all of our focused time and attention is going to the external. And I'm just seeing a question here from Peter that says, was it a trauma that awakened you or a little bit of everything, a mass stimulation? I think what I find very interesting, and it excellent question, Peter, is that I do believe that if we ignore the pattern for so long, then it will actually, it can become a trauma. So unless we're able, like, unless we have the tools already and we can just evolve, but if we don't have those tools and it just gets repetitive, that's when it starts becoming harmful. And I think that if you're experiencing harm, that's a good little tap on the shoulder that says, okay, it's time to wake up and take that big deep look back into self and be like, okay, where am I? Am I happy? Am I experiencing pain, suffering, trauma, harm? And that is a really beautiful way to actually wake back up into the consciousness.
So it's, thank you for answering that. So it's the awareness of the pattern that actually could be creating the trauma, because a lot of people don't realize like trauma is a misunderstood word, I believe, in the sense of it could be some big thing, right? Like abuse or violence, but trauma comes in all different sizes and shapes and ways.
I've really been focusing on harm
Um,
and harm. How how have we as a society allowed harm to just become part of our everyday consensual way of being?
being
And even just watching some TV shows on Netflix, I watched the first half an hour and I'm like, wow, this is really good, and then I can just feel how it's starting to harm my beautiful internal garden. And so it's so subtle. It can be so subtle. And then there's also like advertising where they're just not being subtle and it's coming in and it's just harming my security, it's harming my confidence, whatever it may be. So really just focusing on what doesn't make me feel good versus what makes me feel really good. And that's a really good boundary to be aware of.
the self harm.
Oh, and then there's self-harm. Yeah, right. And then so the thoughts that are not positive or helpful, they're negative and hurtful, right? So that's actually in the book is a really good way how to focus and train our thoughts. I'm really grateful that I've done the work because I have like cheerleaders in my head now that really support me, as well as beautiful friends and beloveds that do it in reality as well too.
So going back to your story that you've shared about your life, I'm interested in the meaning behind waking up at like 222 and the experience of writing in that state of consciousness versus like writing your book or going out to write certain things, right? It can be a struggle sometimes. Like,
Mm.
what's the difference between downloading the consciousness versus proactively creating?
Mm-hmm. Um, I think the main key is willingness. So in every single one of my journeys, I was willing to let everything go. So I was willing to let go of my new condo and my identity. I was willing to move to a whole new place and have nothing happen. And I, the night before that first transmission, I had said I had given I'd given a prayer up and just said, use me as I'm needed. And then again in 2016, I felt very strongly to even offer up my human. And so I went through a major series of activations, but it was all based on willingness and trusting implicitly that everything that I've gone through has been designed with not only my higher good, but the higher good of the all. And so with that trust, I am able to fully let go and release, even though it's potentially scary, potentially, it's not physically easy. Um, and there's just a willingness to be fearless in all of it as well, too. I mean, if I fail and I'll deal with that. And at the same time, too, I just can't allow any fears to stop me. So willingness to let it go, I'd say, is the main key.
Willingness to let go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you can take one thing away, I believe that's it. Willingness to let go and
And the
surrender.
fears, right? Willingness to let
So,
all the fears go, the fears and the doubts too.
yeah.
Right?
So, could you talk more about fear
Fear is the
and
mind killer.
collectively
Yeah.
how to break the pattern of fear? Because we realize
Mhm.
like it is all a pattern. Like, I love that you shared that the pattern of 8 was reappearing in your life,
Yeah.
but the fear is
So,
also in a pattern.
yeah, I mean, fear is a beautiful gift. It can let us know when we are in actual danger. And I think that um, there's a real power in being able to differentiate between what is actual real danger versus what our mind is creating. And so going, like, I love the quote from Dune, fear is the mind killer, right? And so in that scene is one of my favorite scenes of all times in movies, where I don't know all the names properly, but he has to put his hand in the box and he can see that his hand is in a box and that his hand is fine, but she's a witch and she has the power to make it seem like his hand is on fire and melting and burning. And so he has been raised and trained his whole life to remember that fear is the mind killer. So he has to, in those moments, understand that it's only his fear of the fear that will make him fail. And if he fails, he actually dies. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, crazy, powerful scene. And for me, that is, I would say, probably like at the core of my strength of knowing. So, for example, when you take a look at your actual immediate reality, if you are not reading the newspaper or listening to the news or watching TV in any way, and you go about your day, and this is what we do in the Initiate Circle, the program that I have 2 spots for left starting on September 22nd. When you go out into your day, and if you are not tapped into that fear programming, what is your experience? What do you actually see? And to do that as a practice, because what I can guarantee is that there will be so much beauty in nature, so much beauty in meeting people and seeing people. Excuse me. You'll also see people in need. Someone needs help opening a door because they are on crutches, or a mother with a stroller. Open the door for her. If you see a homeless person, offer to buy them a meal or a drink. So you'll definitely see people in need. And so help those people. But most likely, you're not going to see a lot of actual real danger. And that's one of the good things to start training our minds of what is actually like what we are meant to be fearful of or what we are not meant to be fearful of. And so I just don't like to waste any of my precious time, energy, source, self, love on worrying, being fearful of things that aren't actually real in my reality. So that's my path with fear.
So how does one know reality versus one's own truth,
Okay, say that
and
again.
listen to the inner voice versus the outer voice?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, heaven forbid that there are moments where you're actually in danger, right? I mean, the way that I saw it so clearly with my daughter, right? She has a fear of being in the dark. She has a fear at night. And it's like, okay, well, let's talk about what is it that you're actually scared of here? And it's like all these monsters. And it's like these monsters aren't actually real. They've been designed to create a fear state. And so it's really an ability to realize what it is a fear that your mind has created or the 3D programming has created versus actual real danger. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
well, this is really interesting because my daughter as well, like, has this fear at night. And I would say myself as a child did, because I could feel more things. And sometimes those gifts is what we fear the most, which is
Mm,
in us. So
mm.
were you scared of the dark, like as a young child? Or was anyone else here scared
Oh,
as
I
a
was
young child? I think I said
petrified.
young adult. I meant young child.
Yeah. I was petrified of the dark as a young child for sure. But it was in that I was able to recognize that it was me. I was creating the fear. And so if like I just visualize if we all took real accountability for our fear creation, our uh not even just yeah, so our fear creation as well as the fear that we add into fear as a whole. And if we just all just took a moment and just really cleaned and cleared our minds and really stopped projecting fear into our reality and really just did that shift into seeing beauty and creating beauty instead, what a different experience we would have here. And one of the things that I really know to be true is that our reality is malleable and we are the power. We are the ones that are continually co-creating this experience. And so if we could all agree to just choose to create beauty over, even if it's unconsciously creating fear, what a different what a different place this would be. And I believe we can do it if we have enough people that would agree to try it out.
Absolutely. If you're here to try it out, raise your hand, say yes. And yeah, the
Hmm.
power that we are all source.
Hmm.
So there's,
I'm
yeah,
Yeah, just reading Peter's comment here, and he said, "I was afraid of the dark when I was little, and now I walk in the woods without a flashlight at night." And Peter, that's totally what I did too. I actually, I'll walk around at night with my eyes closed just because I love that I can see at night. I just use my memory. Yeah, same, right? And so what a way to overcome any type of fear is just to yeah, to take it by the head and just say, no, I refuse to allow fear to rule me or run me or guide me in any way, shape, or form. Definitely being fearless is something that I've chosen in this lifetime. And I think in order to be able to do what I've done and get to where I've gotten, I've had to be willing to face everything, including death, just to be able to get to this point in time and to have zero fear of death, so that all of those activations and transmissions could come through, and to be in that space of trust that I will always be protected and guided and supported.
So back to the numbers. Yeah.
As we all are. I would just like to share,
Yes.
as we all are, not just
We all are. So the numbers of waking up in the middle of the night, do they have meaning? Can you
it
share the
just happened
meaning?
again last night, which I thought was really amazing. And I just love it when it happens. So, I mean, I'm sound asleep and I was having a dream, and maybe it was like a potential future, and it was not a very nice dream at all. And so I woke up with a start, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to get some water. So I walked downstairs with my eyes closed, and I just love, going through everything like, yep, that's exactly where the glasses will be. And I'm drinking the water, and I just whipped around and opened my eyes, and there was the clock, and then those big red letters 222. And for me, when that happens, I feel like it's our higher self, it's spirit, God, source, just doing that, like, angelic hands on the shoulders, just being like, okay, everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. Everything is moving in the right direction. Just keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing everything right. And so in that moment last night, I did actually, Carrie, go, should I be writing or something? And for now, that was just, I just needed that, because I think about things like, I mean, I could have looked at the clock when I walked in the room, but I didn't. And I could have laid in bed for 5 more minutes, but I didn't. And so it was like all of those choices that led me to turn around and in that moment see 222. And that's what I just love and find so magical about this reality.
Well, that is the reality, right? That every choice and decision we make and thought we have is we're source, we're creating that.
Exactly.
And I believe the numbers are to be aware of that power. So this morning I woke up and it was 5552. And I go, well, of course it's 555. Like I needed that message and that reassurance.
Exactly.
Yes.
That everything is just on course. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like the numbers have different meanings, or is it the overarching, we're cared for, we're supported?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think like I did follow Doreen Virtue's angel representations of the numbers for quite some time. I have them in my cell phone. I've also got it's not handy, a dream Bible that I use, and she has a breakdown of the numbers, and I really actually prefer hers. They feel like they're a really beautiful frequency. And so there's just, one is about ourselves, it's our sovereignty. So if you see 1111, like it's 1144 right now. So I would take that as stepping into mastery. 4 means balance. So 2 is duality, it's yourself with another. 3 is that Holy Trinity, it's the connection between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or Maiden, Mother, and Crone. Then we get 4, which is balance, and you can actually see it in the number. There's the 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 means change. 6 is speaker of truth. 7 is the balance. 7 days, 7 chakras. And it's also completion from beginning to end. 8 is infinity. 9 is the cosmic completion. I forget what 10 is. And then obviously 11 and 22 and 33 are the master numbers. So I love whenever the universe wants to throw out some numbers at me. It just feels to me like I'm super tapped in, I'm on the right path, and just getting some guidance from the other side.
So Bliss, I know you have your initiation circle that you launched or is starting in 2 days, right?
Yes.
Are there ways to work with you one-on-one, or
Oh
are
yeah.
you only, yes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although, I mean, I'm always available for coaching. Although I do sort of close the energetic doors when I am doing the bigger projects, because energetically I'm connected to every single person that's in the container, and so it's quite a feat. But yeah, I'm always available for coaching. I love teaching and training Reiki and the Indian head massage for people who are just stepping into service and want to help and assist healing others. There is, as I mentioned, the immersion to get to know the system, and then the 3-month program, the Initiate Circle, to accelerate consciousness. And then if you want to actually become a consciousness coach, we're going to be launching that one for the first time in January of 2023. So really just depending on where anybody is, if they need just one-on-one, I can do 30-minute session, I can do an hour session. But yeah, there's a real ability when there is that willingness to shift and heal and upgrade quite quickly if the person is willing and able.
Well, my biggest message that I'm hearing from you is the willingness piece to it, the willingness to let go.
Hmm.
And I think that's,
Do the work.
yeah, willingness to do the work, and the willingness to let go is really what I heard in your story. The willingness to take ownership of our gifts, of the
Hmm.
messages. So
Hmm.
what type of advice would you give someone that recognizes their gifts but are hiding them?
Well, and I think that that's also something that is very programmed into us in this 3D reality, is our is to stay small.
Mhm.
We feel like maybe staying small is safer, and yet there's always going to be that gnawing of, like, whether it's the tapping on the shoulder or really big, profound, in your face messages like "get it done already." Um, but I also again, it's like there's that fine line of knowing what your mission is and knowing that you want to accomplish it in this lifetime, as well as knowing when the time is right to shelve it and just let it sit there and percolate. And I just think that the key to it is just to really not allow any negative thoughts, like doubt, insecurity, lack of confidence, um, guilt, all of those things, like, why am I not doing it? Why haven't I accomplished it yet? That all of that stuff has been designed to keep you small. And so there's that gift of fearlessness to know that each and every one of us, I do believe, came here with a higher purpose to accomplish. And not just one higher purpose, but multiple higher purposes. But I also feel that we also don't give ourselves enough credit for what we do achieve. And I think being a father, a really good father to a child, is one of the most beautiful ways of being in an accomplishments and missions accomplished that one could achieve. Obviously, a mother to a child. I think overcoming obstacles, conflicts, trauma, pain with your partner, parents, loved ones, and actually doing the work and getting to the other side where you can you love each other. I think that is a massive accomplishment. And then also too, if you've received an idea or a download or a transmission and it warms your heart, that it is important to rise above all of the 3D programming that has been designed to keep you small and keep that idea hidden within you, and to reach out to the right people. Like, for example, I reached out to James Gardiner, one of the guests today, and I asked him to mentor me because he actually finished the book and got an awesome publisher, and he's rocking it right now, getting his book out there. And I needed that little bit of, like, steam, energy, advice. And so what a beautiful way to actually incorporate collaboration into making our magic manifest and to happen and to actually happen as well too. So yeah, I say it all the time. I would not be here if it weren't for the people that are on my team page of my website, each and every one of them. I literally wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So collaboration is key as well
Beautiful.
to being big and bold and beautiful.
So being willing and open to receive support and ask for support and be coachable and receive the messages, be open. So a story like, I didn't know that you knew James, and it's such a small world because you reached out to James recently. He's going to be coming here at 3 p.m. Pacific. But I had no idea there was a connection between you two. I actually got his name from Lisa, who is coming up next at noon. So just such a small representation of, we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are being.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I did leave your website or one of your links, so feel free to leave additional links, and there will be a replay up on Facebook until tomorrow. Then I'm taking it down. And if anyone wants the recordings, then I'll have them on the VIP pass. And thanks for being here.
My pleasure.